Not only a remarkable, successful 30-year titan in business with having multiple businesses that generate multiplied millions of dollars.
And if that plan happens to be to build $1 million company, which I can help you do.
But he's humble. He's a man of God. He's a family man.
The world's news organizations are built on everything but positivity.
He is an influential entrepreneur and business speaker for over 30 years.
I've got to forecast. I've got to pronounce. I've got to project. I've got to share with you my ideas, my vision, my goals for not only myself, but for you.
That's why he's came up with his incredible concept of taking and creating a platform for people that are wired differently.
And you got to understand that your habits of your person and your habits of your business and your habits of your spirituality have to lead to the North Star of who you are. We need to figure out who we want to be in life.
Good morning, everybody. Good day. Good day. I'm in the Florida studio this morning. I just spent a whole week in the Angola, Indiana studio, and we did our first 31 million successionaire system training. I want to thank everybody that was on that 3-day. You got your certificates of registration or completion. You're now certified wired differently, man. You got a beautiful certificate and you're like certifiable wired differently. You are a successionaire. So listen, we're going to be doing those often. We've got a beautiful studio. We've got great content. We've got great producers, and we had a great time. So again, I want to thank everybody that stayed through us for the 3 days. It was a real privilege to be there with you, to teach you, and to actually learn from some of you. So way to go, way to be. You're wired differently. You're certified wired differently. You are successionaires. Speaking of successionaires, speaking of wired differently people, I want to kind of introduce something to you this morning that's really, really unusual. It's a man by the name of Richard Kaufman. And this guy here is wired differently. This guy is a misfit, right? We talk about that a lot in our brand, our mindset, our mission, our movement, our ministry. We are misfits of this world. And what we do in this world and what we do and how we survive and how we conquer and how we go through our business life is understanding that we have to remember to celebrate our differences, celebrate our niche, right? Our market dominating position is this God-given identity that we've had, and that we need to build on it. We need to move through it. We need to show people the light through us and celebrate the fact that we are not like everybody else. I mean, if there was two or more, I mean, several of us wouldn't even be necessary, right? If there were two or more of this Richard Kaufman, man, he wouldn't be necessary, and he is necessary. He is relevant. He is a misfit. He is wired differently. He is the comeback coach, man. This guy is the comeback coach. He has a podcast called Vertical Momentum. He's a best-selling author of 2 books. He's in the top 1% of all podcasters in the world. And he's on my show. And he's actually honored to be on my show. So I'm honored that he's honored to be on my show. So anyways, I'm going to bring him on in a few seconds, but I want you to understand, I want you to think, I want you to sit back, I want you to think real quick. What are you coming back from? Really, what are you coming back from? I mean, a lot of us have been wounded. A lot of us have been hurt. A lot of us, we did a show just the other day, what it feels like to be ripped off from. How did someone take something from you? Some of us lost a wife, lost a husband. Some of us have been divorced. Some of us have strife with our children. Some of us have lost all our money in our businesses. You know, this guy, Richard Kaufman, started this ministry, if you will, or mindset, or whatever. He's going to tell us what he calls it. Because I'm like in a modern day Apollos. Apollos was the guy that was going through the Bible and he was spreading the gospel and he said, listen to Jesus, talk about Jesus. I got to tell you about, I got all these things I want to tell you, but he wasn't getting it quite right until he was squared up by a couple of ladies. And they said, man, Apollos, you're amazing. You got great oratory gifts. You're a great presenter. You're all these things. But listen, let's dial your message in. Let's get it right. I want to learn more about God. I want to teach more about God. But today I'm bringing on not only an Apollos and someone like me, but more so a Barnabas. Barnabas in the Hebrew word is encourager. So I listened to this guy. I want to bring him on right now without further ado. He is a great encourager. He is a great encourager. So without further ado, I want to bring on the man himself. I want to bring on Mr. Wired Differently. He is there, Richard Kaufman. Hey, wait, I even think I've got some. Let's see if we can do it. Yeah, here it is. Now I just can't stand it. I got to get these people woke up this morning. I got to let them know this is my Friday show. I got to let them know that we're shouting out to the world that I got Richard Kaufman as my first guest on my show. He is super wired differently. I love this dude. I hope this song music doesn't run too long because I don't know how to turn it off, Richard.
All right, let's roll. Let's hear it.
All right, what you got, buddy? Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you?
I'm so blessed to be here. I love it. And I am definitely wired differently, just as my wife.
Yeah,
I'm totally different than everybody else.
Yeah, the funny thing is that like you mentioned your wife. Like if we're wired differently, man, they got to be wired differently, right? They've got to have even a few more screws loose than us. I mean, because they're always putting up a. Like, let's just start off this thing. Then I'm going to get to you. You're going to introduce yourself and all that normal podcast crap. Like, what is it about you that attracts your wife? What attracts her to you? What is like when she looks at you? How long have you been married to her?
Well, now we've known each other for over 40 years. But now we'll be celebrating 14 years.
All right. So, like, what is it about you that she's like attracted? Why? What is it? Tell me. What do you think it is?
Because I honor her, and I study her, and my goal in life is to make sure that she is happy. So I think she sees my heart more than my ego.
You know, that's really. I think maybe we can dive into that a little bit. But let's because I really want to talk. I want to build our listeners because here's what we're going to do with you this morning, and we're going to run out of damn time. I guarantee you. So and here's the problem with me. I talk too much. I want you to talk. I want you to have more minutes than me. So here you're going to, because I learned this from your show. You were great. So tell us a little bit about vertical momentum and why are you the comeback coach? And, I sent you a bunch of questions. I just want to talk to you and I hopefully get to some of them. But man, what is this vertical momentum? What is a comeback coach? Give us the beginning story of what is your identity story that has launched this podcast for us, and just let it rip potato chip.
All right, I'm going to give you guys a quick down and dirty. My father left at 3 months old. My mother was an addict. I became an alcoholic at age 11. Till 13, I became a full-blown alcoholic. Joined the military, got thrown out for being a drug addict. Got back in. Almost got thrown out again just for being an idiot. I'll say it that way. Until the morning of 9/11, and that changed my whole world and changed my life. Got back in the military, got hurt, lost 80% of my vision about 3 years ago. Yeah, it's about 3 years now. And at that moment is when I started the podcast. And now the podcast is just helping people struggling in life and in business, because we're all struggling. No matter if you're the CEO or the janitor, we're all struggling with the same stuff. And that's how the podcast started. And it all started because some guy you might have heard, his name was Gary Vaynerchuk. We had lunch, and he's the one that actually started the Comeback Coach. He's the one that told me to write a book. He's the one that told me to start a podcast. So it's all his fault, and it's all his fault that I'm on this show right now. So that's what I do now. Right now, I go around, I talk to people and let people know it's never too late for a comeback. And everybody loves a comeback story. Nobody would ever watch Rocky 3 if Rocky 2 didn't happen. So everybody loves a comeback story. And if you're watching today is your day to start your comeback.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Gary V, what a great tie. And I met him this year at the Super Bowl. I was speaking at the Super Bowl, believe it or not. We were presenting a movie that I'm making, and Gary was there, and I kind of wrangled him, and he took a few pictures with me. Very encouraging guy. So that's kind of kind of a cool thing to have in common, but I certainly didn't have to sit down and have lunch with him. So I think his encouragement is working. You're doing a great job. So here's what I like to do on this podcast interview process. I would like for you, because I've been studying you, bro. I'm creeping you. I'm on the internet. I was up at 4:30 doing it again this morning. And there's a particular story. I'm just going to I know you're going to nail this, but tell me the story that really kind of broke you when you were a little bit younger. Broke you, like the story about when you maybe tackled a police officer or something like that.
Oh, well,
I don't know. I don't know the whole story. I just know that you got yourself in trouble and you had to pay him back or something.
yeah. Well, what happened was I got out of the military at 20. I got thrown out of the military for being a drug addict and alcoholic. And my mother said I had to go back to school for something. So I took a job. I went to bartending school, which is, as an alcoholic, is not a great job place, but I excelled.
That went down. Now that's a good one.
Yeah, I excelled, obviously. But the first job I got out of when I graduated was New Year's Eve, 1989. And it was a police officer. He actually owned a bar. He hired me to bartend for him. And, I took the job, of course. I'm 20 years old. I'm not even able to drink legally yet. And I've been an alcoholic since age 11 now. So I'm already 9 years as an alcoholic. So I got to the job and everything was going great. And drinks were flowing. The money was flowing. I wake up 8 hours later with him and 3 of his buddies knocking on my door, because I just robbed the place and I don't even know how I got home. I drunk and drove home. But he was ready to lock me up and put me in prison, real jail, not play jail, real jail, for 5 years for grand larceny. And he gave me a chance.
Yeah. What was that chance?
He said, you can either give me my money back in 24 hours. I gave away like $3,000 worth of free drinks and pocketed like $5,000 in cash. Or I can go to prison for 5 years. He said, but if you give me my money back, there's something else you got to do. You got to go to AA for 90 meetings in 90 days. So I begged, borrowed, didn't steal from my family, my dad, my uncle and aunt, got him the money back. And I paid every single penny back to my family. And then I went to my first meeting, January 1st.
AA meeting? It was the AA meeting?
AA meeting in the bottom of a church, still drunk, eating nasty cookies, drinking nasty coffee. And instead of hitting 90 meetings in a row, I hit 300 meetings in a row. And I haven't had a drink or drug since January 2nd, 1989. So if it wasn't for him giving me grace, even though I robbed him, he gave me grace. And now I've been clean and sober since 1989. And if I wish I knew who it was, because I'd give him the biggest hug. I'd take him out to steak and lobster, because he literally saved my life. Because if I would have went to jail at 20, I was a pretty white boy here in New Jersey. You guys can guess what would have happened. I would have been somebody's girlfriend in jail. So he actually saved my life. And that from that day on is the day I started becoming wired differently.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have bottom out or breakthrough stories, and I don't think we revisit them enough. Sometimes we just kind of see where we're at, and then when we start to drift again, and we start to feel sorry for ourselves, we don't really actually remember go back. It's like it was really tougher at one point, right? I had a worse situation at one point, but I found my way through it. And so I just want to understand. So like one of my questions was to you is like, who is one of your biggest influences? And now when I hear like what you're telling me, though, probably answered my question in some regards, and I'll let you kind of move on with this, because everyone wants to know, like, how do you become a Richard Kaufman? How do you become wired like that? How do you become not only a comeback person, but how do you become a comeback coach or encourager or our Barnabas right now. So I would ask you, like, who is one of your biggest influences in your life? And when I hear you tell me this is like a shocker to me is like right out of the gate, the biggest, probably arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest influence in your life is somebody you don't even know.
Oh, besides Todd Saylor,
No, I mean this guy. I mean, I bought $500 worth of coffee off you because it's really good. Vertical momentum. Here's an insert commercial. Buy his damn coffee, man. My wife likes it. My daughters like it. The neighbors like it. I bought $500 worth of coffee, and it came in on a damn truck. It had to eat. They're backing it up. Great value, great deal. But the guy who forgave you and gave you the opportunity to redeem yourself, right, is unknown to you.
I don't even know who he was, but he gets credit every single day. But besides him, I got to give my biggest mentor, because everybody needs a mentor. And if you're not successful, that means you don't have a good mentor. And my mentor is Mr. Ed Milet, because he actually taught me that things don't happen to me, they happen for me. So everything that's ever happened in my life has brought me to this moment with Todd Saylor of Wired Differently. So everything that's ever happened to me, I take ownership of, like Grant Cardone talks about. But I also realize that everything that's happened to me, it's brought me to this point. So I'm where I'm supposed to be.
All right. So you're dropping some big names here right now. So you've dropped Gary Vee, Ed Milet, and Grant Cardone.
Yeah, and a lot, they all have
a spot right now.
But they all have something in common. You know, Gary's a Jersey boy. 20 minutes from here is where his father's liquor store is. Grant Cardone, recovering addict. Ed Milet's father was an alcoholic that finally got clean and got sober. So they all have something in common. They all had comeback stories.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even Gary coming, over here from Belarus, and his father being a stock boy at a liquor store to now being the Gary V. So, they all have something in common. They all have a backstory.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what are these men, these people, if you will? Any women in your life you look up to on the coaching platform or the social media platforms? Any women out there that have influenced you?
Well, there's a woman that a lot of people don't know about. Her name is Tammy Moses. She's probably one of my best friends, and she's a sister from another mister. But she's a Navy veteran. She also has a podcast. But when I lost my vision, she would call me every day and say, hey, bro, I love you. I got your back. So if it would be anybody, it would be Tammy Moses.
So another comeback story. So you lost your vision. Tell the world about that.
Well, I got my life straight finally, and I did 23 years in the military. Good service.
Thank you for serving the country.
Well,
we need that story. Thank you.
But after I got my life back together, and I almost got thrown out for a second time, 9/11 changed my whole life in perspective. And from that moment on is when I cried out to the Lord. I said, Lord, let me help people that can't help themselves. And that's when he touched me and said, all right, then I'm going to give you a sixth or seventh chance. Because even in the Bible it says he'll forgive you 7 times 77. But I got back in the military and I moved to New Jersey, and it was my first, we call it drill in the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my vehicles broke down on the side of the road, and I had to get it off the road so nobody got into an accident. And instead of the young man, I was backing him up, and instead of him hitting the brakes, he hit the gas. And now this is an up armored Humvee. So if you guys know what Humvees look like,
what's up armored mean?
It means it had all the armor, so in case it gets shot at in Afghanistan, it's not going to get blown up. So it's kind of like a mini tank.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of him hitting the brakes, he hit the gas, ran over the whole right side of my body, and ran over my head. And I had an ocular stroke, which caused me to lose my vision. So I lost 80% of my vision on that day, and that's what caused me to get medically discharged on Labor Day 2012 which was the day that I actually attempted suicide. But my 6-month-old daughter saved my life.
You guys listening to this? I mean, are you listening to what's going on right here? Here's a man who's wants to help people come back, who's in literally less than 15 minutes told us 3 comeback stories. And I had in my notes, man, what kind of comeback stories do you have? I mean, what makes you qualified to be a comeback coach? You know, not from an arrogant perspective, but I mean, you inquisitive minds want to know, and literally without having to ask the question, this man had a vehicle run over his head. He lost his eyesight, and his 6-month-old daughter helped bringing back his faith. You know, like, so I think like a lot of us are wondering why our lives suck, right? You know, and we want to get better. We want to hire a coach. We want to do these things. And I listened to Richard, and I just I want to know, Richard, how do you find the energy? How do you like? Tell me if it's true, but if it's not, I don't want to blow smoke. I don't want you to lie to me. Obviously, you would never do that. But every morning when you get up, do you just feel like an ass kicker, or there's sometimes you have to dig deep? How do you find the energy every day to keep doing your wire differently, keep doing your misfitness, to keep doing what you're doing and what you're called? Literally, you were discharged from the Army. You about lost your eyesight. Lord, you probably should have died. I don't know how many men survive a vehicle running over their head. What's the statistics on that, Richard?
Probably not very high. So I'm the only one that I know.
Miracle. Listen, you are a walking miracle, right? And here we are. We got him on the show, and like, so where do you like? How do you find the energy to do what you're doing?
Because I'm grounded in gratitude. That's the number one thing. Before I go to bed at night, I say 3 things I'm grateful for that happened that day. I put my arm around my wife. I pray for her happiness, her health. And then I say 3 things I'm grateful for. Then if I wake up in the morning and I can actually see something, I say, Lord, thank you. Thank you for another day. It's going to be an amazing day. And I actually shout it out in the mornings. But then I also know that, our time is finite. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be here forever. So I have to make today count. Because there is no, like even the Navy SEAL says, the only easy day was yesterday, and there is no tomorrow. So for me, every day I wake up, I'm like, I got to make today count, because I might not be here tomorrow. So that's my driving forces to throw a little rock into the lake, and to cause a ripple that's going to change the world. Because like Gary Vee told me when I asked him, I said, Gary, I'm leaving here today. I need a nugget. Give me something. And he said, your legacy will always be more valuable than your currency. And it changed my whole life. So for me, everything I do is to change the world and to leave a legacy.
Before we got some time left here, but is there an email? Where would you like people to contact you or look you up?
All you got to do is go on, just Google Vertical Momentum Podcast. We're on the first 6 pages of Google. So all you got to do is Google us, and it comes up on all 14 of our platforms. So you can find me anywhere. So I'm easy to find.
What do you mean 13 platforms?
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Tumblr, Flickr, X, all the major platforms.
Twitch? Are you on Twitch?
I haven't done that one. No, I'm a low-tech redneck, so I'm still learning. I'm still learning the game.
I'm not on Twitch. I was coaching someone the other day who was on Twitch, and there was a nice young lady, and she's only been on it for like, this is going to make me a little jealous. She's 18 years old, and she's a gamer, and she's on Twitch, and I didn't even realize that Twitch was like a live gaming thing and how all that worked. And so I started studying, but she's been doing it for like less than 60 days, and she has 25 followers on Twitch.
That's awesome. And, Jesus only had 12, so I'm not really worried about followers.
Yeah. Vertical Momentum Podcast, Richard Kaufman. I want you guys to look at that while we kind of finish out this show here. We got a little time, and I just want to tell you what a blessing it is to have Richard Kaufman here, Vertical Momentum Podcast. He is the comeback coach. He is the king of all comebacks. I got to tell you, I love him. I think he's just got the fire, the energy. And you know what? He's so humble. He's so humble. And so what I wanted to actually just kind of think about these last 3 or 4 minutes we had together, and I'm going completely off script because you just stunned me. You're like a thumb stopper and interrupting marketing when you talked about your wife and how you've been with her for 14 years. And I asked you why. So I'm going to put 2 things together here right now as we kind of close out this session. I want to put one thing that you said earlier on with another thing that you said earlier on, and kind of want to mash it together. And when I asked you about your wife, you said that the success of your marriage, or what she felt attractive about you, was that you honored her. And I thought that was very, very sweet. I thought that was really compelling. And I don't think that anybody would deny that that's a good thing. And I don't think that anybody would deny that when you look at a wife, a partner, a business, or anything that you're doing, that you need to honor that relationship. I also want to tell you something earlier. I don't know if we were on the air or off the air because I'm a little bit of a blur this morning. I flew all night long, but I think we were off the air. And I was walking through some water with Richard about his beliefs and where he was, because wired differently, I want to grow you spiritually. I want to grow you personally, and I want to grow you profitably. That's my job. And his job is to teach business peoples and business owners to grow back, come back personally, even spiritually, and even business-wise. But I said, Richard, as I was kind of tapping around on where he is with God and how he is, and I know that the Alcohol Anonymous, I have several friends in it, and I appreciate that that association really, really a lot. And I know that the Serenity Prayer is a big, big deal. Could you give us a Serenity Prayer real quick and what that means to you?
And I say it every night before I go to bed. And many times during the day, I say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, but the courage to change the things I can. Because a lot of people are trying to change things that they can't. And that's why they're getting frustrated, because they're trying to change things that they can't, but he can.
Right. So I also want to ask you as we close out here, everyone, I need you to get to the Vertical Momentum Podcast. His goal is to get to 1 million views. He's monetized. He's doing it right. He's in the top 1% of podcasts. Get their Vertical Momentum. I want to get Richard to 1 million. I want you to say, I got to 1 million. Wired differently. People are helping me do it. This is an awesome thing. But I want to kind of close here with this idea what it really means to be vertically momentumized, right? And I asked Richard, what is the most important Bible verse that he knew? Now, you just can't go out and start asking people that unless you have your own show called Wired a Different Lean. You're professing God and Christ and your Lord and Savior, right? But here's a guy who knows the Serenity Prayer. Here's a guy who knows how to come back. Here's a guy who is leaning on God on an everyday basis. Matter of fact, he's been successfully married 14 years. And I said, well, what is that Bible verse? And without a nanosecond, he said, it's John 11:35. He said, Todd, my favorite scripture is Jesus. Take us out, Richard. We got about 60 seconds here. You got the music taking us out. Motivate us a little bit. What does it mean that Jesus wept? What does that scripture mean to you? What does it do for your marriage? How are you lifting people up? What do those 2 little words do for you to motivate you, energize you, and make you vertically momentumized?
For me, it just means that in Jesus's time when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, even he needed help. He needed somebody to listen to him. And for me, if anybody's out there listening, I got big shoulders and big ears for a reason, because I'm the guy that's willing to stand in the gap, take the arrows for you until you can get strong again. So I just want to let you guys know that you are never alone as long as I have a breath in my body.
Get to Vertical Momentum, Richard Kaufman podcast. This is a man that you want in your life. This is a show you want in your life. When you need lifted up, be clear you can go to him, and remember, Jesus did leave you. Remember that he will always be there. He said, I will never leave you or forsake you, for then what can man do to you? So let's close with that. Richard, God bless you. Keep going. Let's stay friends. Let's get it on like Donkey Kong. Let's let it rip and data chip. It's us against the world because we're misfits. We're wired differently. Have a great day, everybody. I love you, Richard Kaufman.